Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson. And today we're joined by Jamie Gold, wellness design expert and author of Wellness by Design. Jamie is a certified kitchen specialist, certified aging in place specialist, and Mayo Clinic certified wellness coach. In today's conversation, we are talking about how your home can support your health and nurture you to increase your resilience and well-being. Jamie shares how we can make choices that make our home a haven, whether we're building something new or making small changes in our current space. Jamie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
I am so excited for this conversation. I have a kind of secret passion about building and design. I shared before I hit record, I've built the last 4 homes I've lived in. Each time, the last 3 times, it's been like, this is my forever home. And my mother lives next door. I helped design and build her home as well. So it's a passion of mine. And clearly wellness is a passion of mine. So I just was so excited when you said yes, you would be on the podcast, because it's such an important subject. And so much of what I do with my clients, most people think they're coming to me for support me with food. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And, and, you are really one of the first people I've heard talking about, our home impacts our health. I mean, we all know it and we may go at it in different ways, but with your design background and then having the wellness piece as well, that's why I'm excited to have you here. Can you share a little bit about how did you design, how did you kind of marry the two, and how did you get into the field?
Well, I always loved design, and I come from a family that loves design. And I've always sensed that there was that connection. And what really drove it home for me was my grandmother. And she was pretty much stuck where she was because she was in the only apartment near my parents that had a step-in shower. Being an older woman, she was concerned about falling, getting in and out of a tub every day. So I realized that is really an important issue, because falls can be so hazardous to anyone really, but especially to an older person. And that was what kind of clued me into the need for design for aging in place. And so I focused on that fairly early in my design career and became a certified aging in place specialist, and have worked with retired veterans and little old ladies in condos. And I love that piece of it, because it brings me back to her. It makes me feel that I'm helping other people's grandparents too. So that was my introduction to it. But then my first job in design, I worked at a Home Depot. And the kitchen and bath department was right next to the decor department. And that's where they made all of the window coverings, like the shades and the blinds. And they would be so, I realized how toxic that was, because people would get migraines being in or near that when they were cutting those PVC blinds. And so that was part of my awakening to healthy elements in your home and what you might want to have, what you might want to exclude.
I love that, which is so important. And as I said, I spend so much time talking about that, and it's not even really my job. I mean, it kind of is. But it's kind of the same as the food system, when you really look at what is in what we call food in this country. I'm talking about processed food, well, and even not processed if it's animals not raised right, or, produce sprayed with chemicals. But it is the same And I hear balance coming from you, which is good, because
Balance.
as we start to learn and realize what's in our building products, what's in our decor items, it can get overwhelmed. It's like, wow, well, am I better off outside? Should I live in a tent? Like, what
The,
is
the
the,
EPA says you are. The
well,
EPA says indoor air could be 5 times more toxic than outdoor air.
and I've seen even higher numbers. So yeah, I encourage people to open their windows or, open a door for an hour a day to like make sure you get that air moving.
Get outside if you can.
Well, that's ideal too. Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be an or. So I love that evolution of the aging in place, and then you realize like, wow, I'm just curious, were you one of the people that was being affected by just kind of that off-gassing going on near you in Home Depot?
It would give me headaches, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny, I was shopping for a new guest room bed recently, mattress.
Hmm.
And I walked into one mattress store and the fumes were so intense, I walked out.
Yeah.
I don't want that in my guest room.
Right.
I specifically chose a brand with an organic mattress, a non-toxic. Same with the bedding, because I don't want that in my bedroom. I don't want that for my guests either.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that specifically, and we'll jump in and we'll reverse engineer because I get excited about tips. And there is no perfect. And I just mentioned it can be overwhelming, but I really do believe even focusing on, one change at a time and prioritizing, it can really make a big impact. And your bed is huge. I mean, hopefully you're spending a lot of hours a night
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
And so I love that I always tell people when we're talking about like household products, start with detergent because you're sleeping on it, you're drying with it, like it's touching everything you touch.
You're
And
breathing that when you sleep, especially.
yeah. So I love that you
Yeah.
specifically we're referring to, because we don't think about that. And I'm very sensitive to fragrance and chemical smells. And so I am that person that sometimes gets a little hit in the face when I go into certain stores or
Oh gosh, perfume departments,
yeah.
like casino smoke. I mean, just walking into that mattress store was shocking to me.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's 90+% of the people that walk in there are going to buy a mattress and go,
Yeah,
and sleep on it for years. So,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah, so I know you do design for new construction as well as remodels.
I've worked on both, and right now I'm only consulting rather than doing project management
Okay,
because I do so much writing and speaking. You can't, unless you have a big team, and that's something I
sure.
don't want to have. You can't
Yeah.
manage someone's project if you're, on the road, if you're focused on other projects. So now I'll do consultations, but
Which
I
is
like
like
spreading
perfect,
information this way. I
right?
like, speaking to people who come to you because they know that you're interested and you bring in guests and you're sharing insights. That's one of my favorite ways to share information.
Well, I think it's how we make an impact, right? And so
Yeah.
that
Being
is what
ambassadors.
yeah, it's why we have the conversations. So it's amazing. So is there, I've like a million and one questions again, because this is such like a pet subject of mine too. But thinking about the autoimmune audience, right? So we're inflamed and, it's the ones who haven't started working with me yet, then we get better. But if we're thinking of toxic exposure, and also just, having your home be supportive. I know that you address, people living with chronic pain and things that you can do in the house to ease some of that. So like, is there a high priority, either room or, how do you even approach if somebody has never even thought about this before?
I find out what their biggest concern is, and where they spend the most time. What's their high priority room? Because that could be different for you or me or that person. And so each approach should be individualized for that person's how they live.
That. I love that.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Just like, just like the healing journey has to be individualized.
Right, exactly. You talk about food. An organic apple is going to cost more than a regular apple. And what are you getting for that? And what are you giving up with that extra expenditure? We'll magnify that from the apple to materials for your home.
Right.
And what's important, how long will you be there? How will you be using? Is this a high priority space for you? How sensitive are you? If you're going to do a remodel, do you have a place that you can stay where you're not exposed to things during the construction part of it? There's so many factors involved. It's definitely not a one size fits all.
Yeah, that's good advice. And it is. It's always, I'm sure it's the same thing, right? There's the framework, but then it's, what is your priority in your life? I want to circle back to your story a little bit. And I want to talk about your book, Wellness by Design, because I feel like it probably didn't feel like good timing but the timing of you writing the book coming out, and then the beautiful addition that you've made with the new chapter post, if we can even say post-COVID, I don't know, but
post-pandemic.
Post-pandemic.
I don't think we'll ever be post-COVID.
Post-lockdown.
Post-lockdown, right? And the book was scheduled to. The book went to press right before the lockdowns. I didn't know, my editors didn't know, my publishers didn't know that was going to happen. And it shifted the publishing schedule for thousands of books across the country, probably across the world.
Sure.
But so much of what I had in there became relevant. For example, creating a healthy work from home space. How many millions of Americans started to work from home? Creating study areas, which became great when people were teaching their kids at home. Kids were online at that time. A whole chapter on technology, things about the importance of indoor air quality and reducing germ spread. I didn't know we were going to have a pandemic, but those all proved to be pretty darn helpful.
Well, and it's interesting. I think that people's experience through COVID, either they got healthier or less healthy, and it's the same things that we do to improve health and stay healthy became really evident and important. And people maybe that weren't paying attention or buying in now realize like, oh, this is real. Yeah.
And there were all these extra stresses that people had in their life. They might suddenly have a vulnerable family member living with them. They might suddenly have two people working from home and their kids studying from home. So whatever they could do to reduce their home stress at that crucial time was going to be helpful too. So, for all those people who had surfaces that required extra care, well, that was an extra stress as well. And I'm a big fan of low maintenance things, whether it's my hair or my countertops. I want low maintenance life. I don't want to be working and fussing about things that I think just should take care of themselves, basically. I'll clean you and, I'll keep you from being damaged, but I don't want to be polishing countertops. I don't want to be wiping fingerprints off a high gloss lacquer vanity, every time I look at it. So for me, the 5 facets of wellness design include functionality, which includes low maintenance and durability, things that will last and make your life easier. And I think that was especially helpful for people who had that during COVID, but it's always helpful.
It is always helpful.
Stress in our lives, right?
Yeah, we have enough. I always, anywhere where you can reduce it. So what is one of your favorite countertop materials?
I love engineered stone.
Okay.
Which would be, a lot of people call them engineered quartz, silestone, Cambria, Caesar stone, Zodiac. Those are all basically the same material with different brand names, Coke versus Pepsi.
Right.
They're
Right.
all essentially the same, but you never have to seal them. You never have to polish them.
Mhm.
They're stain resistant, heat resistant. And then there are some hybrids that are combination of different materials that also make them extremely durable and low maintenance. And there are porcelains. When you think of tile countertops, you're probably picturing your grandmother's or your
The
grandfather's
dirty
house with
grout.
the little, exactly, the dirty grout. But there's porcelain slab that could be this whole huge surface that looks whatever you want it to look like, whether it's distressed copper or marble, but it doesn't have any of those maintenance properties to them. And they can
Oh,
go
wow.
indoors or outdoors. They're
I love
frost.
that. I've always loved the look of a marble counter. Now with the manufactured stuff, you can get, I would never put a marble countertop in a kitchen. I think it's
It's high
only
maintenance.
for show kitchens where you don't actually cook.
Right.
It's perfect. And I don't recommend that. I actually recommend everybody cook. So I love that. I just, but I really, I love that is amazing advice for, that really considering how low maintenance, something can still be beautiful and high end and make you happy
Yeah.
and be low maintenance. So
Yes.
I think that that's really smart. Any little steps in the day. I had a client ask me today, do you diffuse your hair every day? I said, no, I get out of the shower and I do that. And
I'm a wash and go gal.
yeah, I don't have time for that. It's not where I choose to put my
Right.
energy.
Do you want to spend an hour on your hair, or do you want to spend an hour on a hike or
Right.
a game or coffee with friends or
Yeah.
a walk? And that's how I look at life.
Yeah. I love that. Oh,
So,
that's amazing. I want to ask, I'm going to take a turn
go for
because
it.
I think it ties all the way back into your inspiration from your grandmother. I want to
Mhm.
talk about the health benefits of multi-generational living because I feel like, and you'll tell us maybe if it's kind of coming, it really had fizzled. Way less people are experiencing it or were before COVID than
Right.
say 20, 30 years ago. I grew up with a lot of people whose grandparents lived in the same house as
Mhm.
them, and the aunt and uncle lived next door. And
Yeah.
um,
Same.
it seems like that's something that became less common, and I think has had a negative impact on just family wellness, all of it. Is
I
it
agree. And
coming back more since COVID?
it's becoming more mainstream, but it's always been there in a lot of the ethnic communities that I've
Yeah,
worked with and lived around. Growing up in New York City, it was pretty common. You
yeah.
know,
I
our
grew up in New
Polish
Jersey,
neighbors, our
so
Italian neighbors, our
yeah.
Jewish neighbors all had grandparents living in the same house.
Mhm.
My grandmother has lived with us on and off. And I had two grandmothers, and the one that I was closest with was the one who shared our home.
Sure.
And she was my buddy
Yeah,
and an ally. And I
yeah,
think that there is that benefit of emotional closeness, as well as passing along the family traditions.
yeah.
And then you talk about some of the more concrete benefits. If you have an older family member at home and they need care, you're closer and able to provide it more easily. Or if you have childcare needs and you have an older family member, well, that's one more adult who can help. And of
Right.
course, every family has to work out its arrangements. And
Sure.
that should all be done before someone, shares a
Needs
home.
it. Right.
Now, what's the responsibility? What's the privacy? What's the expectation? All of that. But that benefit of sharing the family, the cultural heritage, for example, sharing all those
Sure.
recipes, that my mom got from her grandmother, for example, and the closeness, the allyship, and the caregiving that could be reciprocal. Even to the point of one of the trends that's been really big in California, and it's spreading, is the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit, what we used to call granny flats. And that has become a big trend. And sometimes it's the grandparents moving out of the home that they raised their children in and moving into a granny flat on the property. So they have their own space, their own entrance, their own privacy, but they're close by. So there's caregiving both ways. And of course, adding that extra home to the property adds value.
Right.
And when you know there's this huge housing shortage, so it certainly helps with that. And it helps the younger couple and their children have a place to live
Yeah.
in an established neighborhood. So it's benefits all around. It really
I love
is.
that. And zoning wise, is it encouraged? I know like where
It's
I live.
encouraged.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. And, now they're doing things that go beyond just a single granny flat, and there's some certain pushback against that. But if you have a house and you have a yard and you could put a 1 or 2 bedroom little outbuilding there,
Mhm.
that's a benefit for everyone, for
I
the older
love that.
generation, the younger generation, even the neighborhood in a way.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. My multi-generational situation is I'm laughing because I'm looking at, I guess, what kind of could be considered a granny flat, except my mom's house is bigger than mine because this was my downsize. But it really was that, she was living in Arizona, I was living in Colorado, single mom, 3 kids, and anytime she needed extra something, if something happened, I had to go to Arizona. And so for us, it just worked out. And my mom is young and vibrant. It worked out better that we get big property. She have her house, but is right there.
I think it's ideal.
Yep, wasn't feeling well yesterday. I was able to pop over between clients and, just make sure she was all right and bring her some soup. So I can understand, all of the immense benefits, and especially when families are having younger kids. I watched it with my friends, it was just great. My grandparents always lived in another state, and so I always was kind of a little jealous of my friends that had their grandparents living right there.
No, I've had neighbors who would have the parents come in from other countries, like the Philippines is a big one, or
Mhm.
India, and they would stay with them for months at a time.
Right.
So that's pretty common in a lot of cultures. And I've worked on homes where there are 2 primary suites, one for
Yes.
the older couple and one for the main couple. And the older couple would have their own kitchenette in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's a great idea, and autoimmune, specific for, I'm thinking back to when I was a single mom, and that was when I was at my sickest when I was young. I mean, I still am technically a single mom, but my kids are adults, so it's a little different. But when they were little and busy, and I was fatigued and in pain, and you know, really working hard just to function through the day, if I had a parent living, somebody who could just at least part-time help out, would have been
yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
And what value for the kids to,
Right.
to have had that. So I think that it's a piece that it's just become less common, and I love that it's getting more common again.
I do too.
For different reasons, in addition
Mhm.
to just culturally, if that's what we're used to.
Culturally, care-wise,
Yeah,
just the whole housing shortage
yeah,
issue. That's why I wanted to include that as one of the 5 themes in the bonus chapter, is because I see the wellness benefits of multi-generational living. I mean, I knew the grandmother who lived with us. I really barely knew the one who was in a nursing home. I mean, that
sure.
was just a huge study in contrast right there.
Right, right. Well, it makes sense. So I love that,
Mhm.
you're a good part of your career has been, not only the multi-generational, but also just allowing seniors, creating spaces for them so they could stay in their homes and not
Mhm.
need to go to a facility. So I think that it's a real gift. Um, I want to talk a little bit about all the things, but I want to shift to technology because, as I was confessing with this last house that I built, some of the things that I wanted to do that I thought were supportive for my health, that are supportive for my health, the builders kind of thought like I was a lunatic because It's just not how they're doing things,
Uh-huh.
right?
They
Um,
better adapt, because it really is every industry survey that I come across,
mhm.
that people are savvy to the fact that their homes have an impact on their health.
Well,
That
because we're
wasn't
having
the case when I wrote
conversations.
the book.
Yeah, yeah.
It is now, though,
No,
and I'm
it's
glad about
fantastic.
that.
It's
Uh,
wonderful. It is. So I look at I went to visit my best friend last year who lives in this, beautiful condo by the ocean. And she was talking to all of her not I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I have a dumb home. I intentionally built a dumb home and I probably didn't need to. Could have done things a little differently. Um, just shut my Wi-Fi down at night, just I take extra steps and I know I go sometimes beyond. These are things I needed to do to support my resilience as I was healing that are now just habits. It's fine. But what is that balance between, because technology can make life easier.
It
Or-
can, and it can make
So
life healthier.
how can it make life healthier?
Well, let's take indoor air quality. There are different monitors that can let you know if there's an issue. People don't think much about radon because it doesn't have a smell to it. You can't see it, you can't smell it. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer after cigarette smoke.
I didn't know
So
that.
a
Wow.
radon detector is technology. It can save your life.
Okay.
There are other technology systems that tie into indoor air quality. One that I particularly like is cooktops that sync with the ventilation hood,
Oh,
so that if you're cooking something, it knows what it is and it adjusts to the right performance level. And that works with induction cooktops, which are
okay.
great technology, in my opinion, especially compared to gas, which can negatively impact your indoor air quality.
Okay.
So that would be an example. Then there's leak detectors that will let you know if a pipe is leaking slowly, or a hose or something along that line. And maybe you're not seeing it, but it's creating an unhealthy mold issue
Sure.
or insurance claim down the line, which is emotional stress and financial stress. So things like that. And there's all kinds of technology to let you know that there's an issue with your home. Or there's caregiving remote technology as well. If
Yeah.
your mom were still living a state away,
Yep.
you could have technology in her home that lets you know if there's a problem.
I like that. And that's getting better and better and better. Although I spoke to a client yesterday who told me I think she has an Apple Watch or something, and I could hear it. Somebody was talking to her while I was, and she confessed, I don't know, it's my watch is saying it keeps thinking I fell down hard. And I haven't fallen down. And I'm like, well, I guess better than ignoring a fall, This
Right.
is, but I think that's an area where technology is changing
Mhm.
health, especially for the aging um, community, like really greatly, and that stress level on loved ones who at
Mhm.
least feel like, okay, if something happens, I'll know.
Right.
Right? Because even if my mom lives next door, God forbid, if she fell and couldn't get to if something happened, I would notice if I hadn't seen her in a
Mhm.
while. But
Right. Mhm.
so see, that's where I know I can be very, close-minded, and I know there are positives because you wouldn't talk about it if there weren't positives.
And this technology that
Sure,
allows people to visit with each other without being there.
which was
I've done
huge during COVID.
seminars this way, and
Yeah,
uh, I've attended a baby shower. No, it was a baby shower and a bat mitzvah and a celebration of life
yeah.
and good fitness training. In fact, my workout buddy moved from San Diego to Canada. We work out on video.
I love it.
and it's an accountability partner, and it's just more fun that way.
Oh, well, and it does the accountability piece. So it's
Right,
fun,
right.
and you actually do it in a way you're not
Exactly.
dreading, which
I
is
visited with a fitness trainer, and I've interviewed other fitness trainer who could train clients remotely.
love it. No, it's true. It really has made us all glue. I work with clients in Europe, so I wouldn't be doing that, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, there's a lot of positives, and I think that is one of the things that was highlighted. I remember when I was first coaching over Zoom, trying to explain to people what Zoom was and how to use it. Now
Mhm.
everybody knows how to Zoom. It's great. It really is. What about those whole, smart homes, whole house where your house is running itself? Are you for that? Is there anything we should be paying attention to?
Again, it's going to depend on the person
Hmm.
and their needs, because I tend toward the simple.
Okay.
But I would personally, and I'm in a townhouse. I never intended this to be my forever home, but my forever home will have technology built in. I,
Okay.
for example, want to have not only solar panels, but backup batteries,
Yeah.
so that
Smart.
I could run my home on stored power, even if we're down for a few days because of an earthquake or
Yep.
other interruption. So things like that, and indoor air quality monitors, water quality monitors. So yeah, and again, I do this kind of thing where I'm communicating with people. So you have to have a certain bandwidth to do that. And
Sure.
I'm lucky in my area, I have broadband, so we don't have interrupted signals. So
Yeah,
that's important as well.
it
But do
is.
I need every bell or whistle? Do I need to be able to walk in and say, turn on the music? Not necessarily. It's nice to have,
Right.
but it's also nice when you have a smarter security system, or
Sure.
if you have windows that are hard to reach and you can operate the blinds remotely, that's a safety factor as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always
So,
begging my mom, please don't climb. Don't, I'll be right there. Don't touch it.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Please don't get on that ladder.
Don't. She gets in trouble if I come and there's
Mhm.
this even like a taller step stool out. It's
Right.
not okay.
Mhm.
It's not
Exactly.
necessary.
Exactly.
It's really not necessary. So I love this idea. You're inspiring me to focus a little more with people on like simplicity, right? And I'm guessing you work around ease of use. I know I've read that was kind of, and you're right, it does depend on the person's lifestyle and priorities as far as ergonomics and chronic pain and all the things.
Mhm.
But that what can we do to just lower maintenance and lower the steps we have to take care of our home, I think is so important.
And that's a remodeling, new construction type of conversation. The materials that you choose is part
Mhm.
of it. There are people who will do a countertop redo without, remodeling their whole kitchen.
Right.
But, a lot more people find, well, I have to fix this, so I'm going to have to do that. And then this is involved and that's
Uh-huh.
involved. So there's no simple project really.
Right. Right.
And so it comes down to what choices you're going to make. And that's why, a lot of people like to DIY things, but then you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So I think if you can study up on, the different surfaces, and I have in my book a whole chapter on materials that will hopefully, help people with that. What's your needs are different if it's just you and a partner and there's no kids at home, for
Right.
example. If you have kids, you have a lot more spills. And then,
Oh, you haven't met me. I'm the potchka queen. I
and then
can spill anything.
there are spills with other people, even if you entertain a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have that. So everyone has to make those decisions, but do it with as much information as you can.
Yeah.
I always say that what you don't know can really bite you in the butt.
It can, and I think that is right there, the overarching, that's where the book is such a gem because Yeah, I spilled a bottle I just opened a bottle of olive oil the other day and I knocked it over. I was like,
Oh,
picked it
wow.
up as quick as I could and I stood in my kitchen. I was actually proud of myself. I took a breath and I was like, you know what? I have soapstone counters. So I was like, I'm gonna oil the counters because I had this bottle of oil anyway.
No.
And I have it's a dark, it's the toughest soapstone I've had intentionally in any house. And so I don't oil, I think I've oiled them once and we've been here 6 years. So it was like, oh, okay. And we're going to use olive oil. And how healthy is that? It's great. Anti-inflammatory counters. So but I just I love that understanding the materials and making educated
Mhm.
choices, knowing if something is porous or toxic or is essential. So
Mm.
I don't know. It is such a great resource, the book,
And
and I
sometimes
know
it's not it's not the counters, it's what you have to clean them with or seal them with or
right,
polish them with. So, and just knowing what maintenance is involved with the materials you're choosing.
yeah.
You may love the look of that surface and then find out, well, in order to keep it looking that way, this is the care it requires.
Right. And it may require, a professional. It may require beyond what you're going to do at home yourself.
And
And
how
that's
durable is it?
right. Yeah.
How long will it last you? Will it look as great in 5 or 10 years as it does in the showroom?
Right. Yeah. If you're actually using it. So I
Most
love
people
that.
do. Yeah,
It's
most people do.
it's great. It's really great advice. And I know you referenced it, but so you have the book now has that additional
Bonus chapter.
post-pandemic
Mhm.
chapter of kind of the things I'm guessing they're not things that you learned in the pandemic. They're things that people are now, more aware that are important. And so anybody who has the book can go online and get access to that chapter. Is that
Right.
correct?
There's a reference in the book to where bonus material has lived since the book published, because I had endnotes and I wanted to include links to those endnotes and to the designers and companies that provided imagery. So people could just go on and take a look at those things and a resource guide and checklist. So that's the area where the bonus chapter lives now. It had a home already that it could just move into.
Perfect.
And so you
See,
have to have the book to know
you were
what that
all set
location
up.
is.
It was meant to be. It really was meant to be. And so I cannot recommend enough if anybody is, and again, I really think just like we don't know what we don't know, we also don't know what we're going to need to know, right? You don't know if you have an unexpected remodel coming your way or
Huh?
and
Yeah.
so I just think it's a wonderful resource for people to have because your home can and should support your health and improve your resilience. And so I'm
You
grateful for
know
the
that
work
from
you're
a
doing.
food perspective too. Your kitchen is your home's fueling station.
Oh yeah,
And the easier it is to make healthier meals in your kitchen, the more you're likely to do it.
it's true.
If
It's
it's
true.
hard, if it's dark, if it's unpleasant, chances are you're not going to be cooking as much.
Yeah. Yeah. And even little things. And this is where it comes to personalization. A happy accident as my health was declining in that home. I had a warming drawer in the kitchen. I hadn't ever had one before. I don't even know why, it was recommended and I put it in. I used that thing all the time because I didn't have the physical energy to do after school activities and cook dinner,
Mhm.
within that window. And so that is where it's like really look at, where you are health wise, how you're living and what you need your home to be supporting you
Right.
with.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That- kitchens and food are important.
I love it. So we covered a ton and I have a million more questions, but I promised I would let you out on time. So I'm going to hit you with my wrap up question, which
Okay.
is, and it can be anything. What
Mm.
is one step that listeners can take today to start to improve their health?
That's an excellent question.
Well, thank you. I know it stumps everybody.
And it's going to be different for each person. but I say, know yourself, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And then apply that to your environment, which of course includes your home. Make it a space that supports and nurtures you instead of sabotaging you. Look at the different ways that you feel happy and comfortable and relaxed and supported in your home. And then change those things one by one that don't add to your life. Doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be one drawer per weekend.
Yeah.
As opposed to one room. Don't tackle the whole garage at once. That can make you crazy.
Right. No, that's a huge project and can be exhausting, but I love that, the change one thing at a time, and that really checking in to what is it that does support you, what nurtures you. I love that word. It's so important. We tend to get fast paced and not think about that. And we need it. We all need to be nurtured.
One of those other 5 facets of wellness design I mentioned earlier is comfort and joy.
Yeah, it's essential.
So your home should provide both. It should support both.
Love it. Love it. So before I let you go, for people that are listening on the go, which is typically how I listen, where is the best place to find you?
My website has links to my weekly ad-free blog. It has links to articles I've written, my own information, that bonus place that you could find if you get the book, and of course, how to get the book and 2 excerpts. That's jamiegold.net. It's JAMIE, gold like the metal, .net, not .com. That went to the poker player. JamieGold.net. That's where you'll find everything you need.
Amazing. Jamie, thank you so much. You have shared genuine gold with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to come back whenever you have more questions.
I love it.
I hope everyone has a happy, healthy, safe holiday.
Thank you. For everyone listening, remember you can get the transcripts and show notes, including links to Jamie's website and the new book chapter, by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.